Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You pick up your phone, open Instagram, and nothing happens. You open YouTube, nothing. You search something on Google, but there is no connection. You think it's just your Wi-Fi, so you restart the router. Still, nothing. You restart your phone. Nothing changes. Then you turn on the television and suddenly see breaking news. Internet services have stopped worldwide. At first, nobody panics because internet outages happen all the time. Everyone assumes engineers will fix it. But 1 hour becomes 6 hours. 6 hours become a day. A day becomes a week. And then governments around the world make an announcement nobody expected. The internet isn't coming back. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Ever. Now, think about it. What would actually happen to our world if the internet disappeared forever? Would social media disappear? Would banks collapse? Would airplanes stop flying? Would hospitals stop working? Would businesses shut down? Or would humanity simply return to the way things were before the internet? To understand the answer, we have to follow what happens from the first few hours to the first few years. The first thing that disappears is communication. WhatsApp messages stop. Emails stop. Instagram goes silent. YouTube disappears. Video calls fail. Billions of people suddenly lose one of the fastest has ever created. But here's something interesting. Humanity wouldn't become completely disconnected. Traditional phone networks could still exist. Radio could still broadcast. Television could still transmit. People could still meet face to face. So the world wouldn't become completely silent. Instead, the world would become slower. And that difference would matter. Because within hours, people would realize something much bigger has disappeared. Money. Imagine walking into a supermarket. You fill your cart, reach the counter, and tap your phone. Payment failed. You try again. Nothing. You open your bank application. It doesn't load. You try an online transfer. Nothing. You walk toward an ATM and suddenly realize that getting access to your own money may be much harder than you imagined. People would rush toward banks. Cash would become extremely valuable. Businesses would start asking customers to pay physically. Paper receipts would return. Manual records would return. But here's the important point. The money itself hasn't necessarily disappeared. The problem is the system that moves it. Modern finance depends on interconnected computer networks. So, your bank account might still contain money, but transferring that money across the world could become extremely difficult. And this is only the beginning, because money is connected to almost everything else. Think about a modern company. It may have employees in different cities, customers in different countries, suppliers on another continent, orders coming through websites, payments arriving digitally, and important information stored on remote servers. Now, remove the internet. The company doesn't instantly disappear. The building is still there. The workers are still there. The machines are still there. But something extremely important is missing. Coordination. A factory needs a component. The supplier has it, but communication becomes difficult. A customer places an order, but the company can't process it normally. A business needs to transfer money, but the financial system is disrupted. One problem creates another, and another, until something much larger begins to happen. Supply chains start breaking down. Look around your room. Your phone, your laptop, your television, your clothes, your food. Almost everything around you has a story behind it. A product might be designed in one country, manufactured in another, assembled somewhere else, and transported through several more countries before reaching you. This is the global supply chain. The internet didn't create global trade, but it made coordinating it dramatically easier. Remove the internet, and global trade doesn't magically disappear, but it becomes slower, harder, and more expensive. And eventually, you notice it in the most ordinary place. The store. At first, Supermarkets might look completely normal. Food is still there. Water is still there. Medicine is still there. But then, certain products become harder to find. A shipment is delayed. A supplier can't coordinate properly. A factory is waiting for parts. Another company reduces production. Prices begin changing. People start buying more than they normally need. And suddenly, a psychological problem becomes an economic problem. Panic. People don't just respond to shortages. They respond to the fear of future shortages, and that can make shortages worse. But while people are worrying about groceries, another sector faces a much more serious challenge. Healthcare. Imagine you're in an emergency room. A doctor needs your medical history. A pharmacy needs information. So no, every hospital would not simply switch off, but systems that depend on external connectivity could become much harder to operate. Paper records become important again. Physical documents become valuable. Doctors may have to rely more heavily on direct communication, and governments would face a similar challenge. Because modern governments aren't just politicians sitting in offices. They are enormous information systems. Taxes, public records, emergency services, transportation, communication, utilities, and security all depend on complex digital infrastructure. Without the internet, many of these systems would need alternative methods, and that leads to one of the biggest misconceptions. If the internet disappeared, your phone wouldn't necessarily become useless. Your camera could still take pictures. Offline games could still run. Downloaded videos could still play. Your calculator would still calculate. Your computer could still run many programs. So, what actually disappears? The connection to the rest of the world. Think of the internet like an enormous road network. Your house still exists. Your car still works. Your friend's house still exists. But imagine every major road connecting your neighborhood to the rest of the world suddenly disappears. That's what losing the internet would feel like. It's not one giant computer. Think about what's required. Fiber optic cables, routers, servers, data centers, undersea cables, satellite systems, engineers, technicians, and most importantly, international cooperation. Then those networks begin connecting to each other. But would the new internet look the same? Probably not. It could be smaller, more expensive, more controlled, and more local. Imagine living without Google, YouTube, online courses, instant news, or global communication. Information would become slower, and people might return to radio, newspapers, books, and face-to-face conversations. Some people might even enjoy a life without social media, notifications, and endless scrolling. Local communities could become stronger, and people might spend more time together. But there would also be a huge cost. Millions depend on the internet for jobs, education, business, research, and communication. Losing it wouldn't just remove distractions, it would remove opportunities. After a year, humanity would adapt. Cash, radio, printed newspapers, local networks, and traditional communication would become normal again. Businesses and governments would create alternatives, while engineers slowly worked to reconnect the world. Eventually, and that's the real lesson, the internet isn't just Instagram, YouTube, or Google. It's an invisible system supporting finance, business, education, healthcare,